Purpose of this masterclass is that I want to set some expectations and I want to share how you can actually clear exam. What are the ways that can help you in clearing the exam? What are the difficulties, challenges that you can face? I was having a discussion like a 2 hour ago with some ATPs, and they were saying that the content is somehow twisted and it is mixed with the previous material. But as we have gone through days, you need to read the material in that way. How? First, you need to read the day 5 material, keeping the business in mind, that communication, stakeholder, actually the way we studied. First, the business domain, then the people domain, then in the last, process domain. There's a specific reason for that. 8% exam is business domain and it's very less material. When you cover communication, stakeholder, resource, you are actually covering the people area. And when once you go through the day 1 and day 3, day 4 material, you covered 42% of the exam. Okay. Yes, Zakriya?
Yeah, I was actually a bit confused on exactly how the like which days to go in first because I didn't save one by one. So it was first day 5, right? We started with.
Initially, start with the my slides before day 5. Some slides I send you.
Yeah,
Start
yeah,
with
the
that.
presentation.
The presentation, the agile area, then go with the day 5,
Uh-huh.
then go with
Okay.
the day 1 and day 4, then day 2, day
Mm,
3. Okay,
okay.
got it? Asan,
Yes,
just
thank
for
you.
you making this thing easy, basically now the PMI material is a little bit in a different way. So I am just informing them how to study in that way. Zakri, any other question? You can
No, I'm good.
lower your hand.
Yeah.
I will be going with the fundamentals and then we'll see how to add up all these things. Okay, okay, so let's see. We know the most important thing that in order to start anything, a need must be there. A business need must be there. Whenever a project has a business need, we do SWOT analysis. For example, let's say I want to increase my revenue. I want to increase my revenue. Now, of course, there will be more than one options. There will be more than one options. I do SWOT analysis of those options and I make business case of all those options. Option A, option B, option C. It can be multiple business case or it can be single business case. What is a business case? Business case is a documented feasibility report which give us cost as a in the minimum term. It give us benefit to cost analysis or cost to benefit analysis, why we want to do that project in the terms of finance, in the terms of dollars, what will be its benefits. Now, when I'm saying dollars, it is not always necessary that we will talk about money. It is possible that the project will become some legal requirement, the project becomes some environment requirement. Okay, so anything can be there. So you need to understand that thing, that is very, very important. Okay, so once the business case is done, you have made the business case. You know that you need to have higher net present value, higher IRR, higher lower payback period. This is very important. Payback period must be less. Then if in two cases, whichever has less, whichever has more ROI, return on investment, you chose that project. So once that project is chosen, then you make benefit management plan. What is a benefit management plan? Benefit management plans basically tell us what are the benefits, why we are doing any certain project. The target benefits, the matrices, all those things are being targeted in there. So business case is there, benefit management plan is there. Or first phase known as pre-project is completed. So once the phase get completed, it goes to the stakeholder, it goes to the sponsor, sponsor approved it or sponsor rejected depending upon the requirement, depending upon the needs and all those things. Does this make sense or no? Does this make sense? Okay. Then once that is done, benefit management plan is done, then once if it is approved, if we found out that this is a good thing, then we go and we make project charter. Now, project charter is a document that authorizes the project manager. Project charter is a document which gives project manager power to execute anything. Project charter is a document that is the real power. It will tell what are the high level scope. It will tell who is the project manager. It will tell what is the authority of the project manager. It will tell who is the sponsor and ensuring the funding and all those things. It will also have key deliverables, key milestone, so high level picture of the project. One of the way in which you can ensure the buy-in of the stakeholder is to involve the major stakeholders while you are building project charter. While you are building project charter, get their buy-in, get the buy-in of the stakeholders. So project charter is done, project charter is made. Now what to do? Next step. Next step is a very important step. Communicate project charter to the identified stakeholder to the identified stakeholder, the key stakeholder. The purpose is that so that everyone knows his roles and responsibility. Everyone knows what is expected from him or her. And once that is done, you go and you actually identify all the stakeholders. And then you rate them through power interest matrix. And then once that is done, you can use power interest matrix, you can use salience model, you can use stakeholder cube. The purpose is to classify the stakeholder as high power, high interest. The purpose is to see which stakeholder has the more power and the most. Once you have identified and shortlisted from all the stakeholder as the most important stakeholder in the stakeholder register, you write what are the current engagement and what are your desired engagement level of the stakeholder by utilizing tool known as stakeholder engagement matrix. So you use stakeholder engagement matrix, and in this way your stakeholder register get completed. Okay. Yes, Zakria, you have a question?
Yeah, Amar, according to the slides that you made, after the project charter has been developed, it goes to the project resource management. So
Now,
we
now I'm
plan a resource management,
now I am
estimate activity resource.
Zakaria. Now I'm making the sense of complete project. What actually happens? I'm telling the complete story, and if you remember the
Mm.
story in this way, then you can actually solve all those questions. One thing is slide, and one thing is remembering through story, which makes real sense. Okay, Zakaria.
Mm.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, can you repeat that? You were cutting out a little bit.
Yeah. Now I am making story of the complete game. What happens? So it is possible that I will do some steps earlier, some steps late, but in this way you will remember better. Okay, Zakaria?
Okay.
Okay. So once the
Yes,
stakeholder
clear.
once the stakeholder register is done, you communicate this to the stakeholders. Now here comes the important thing. Here you decide, is your scope fixed or are you going to make minimum viable product? So here you are going to decide whether you are going to focus on predictive environment or are you going to work on agile or are you going to do hybrid cycle? So here this is found out, and we know that from Stacy diagram which we discussed, if the project is new, if the project is something that is being built incrementally in steps, then we prefer to go to the agile thing. If we know some part of the project, we are 100% sure about some part of the project and we are don't know the remaining part, then we use hybrid. If we know 100% of the project in detail, we can plan it upfront, then we go with the predictive approach. So predictive, hybrid, agile. Which type of life cycle to use depends on this thing which I just discussed. Now, once that is done, your life cycle up is done. Now you go towards basically the real planning. What I suggest is building a team. You have started the project. The first step is basically to build your team. Okay. Build your team, identify what kind of resources you need. Maybe make a resource management plan and of course you make a team charter accordingly. Now resource management plan there, team charter there. Team charter is a very important thing which will tell us the vision and all those things. So if let's say for the initial discussion, let's consider that we have decided to go with the agile approach. First we will move with the agile approach, then we will go with the predictive approach to understand all those things. So let's say we have gone with the agile approach. So our highest priority would be to satisfy the customer. We know customer collaboration over contract negotiation. We know that we can expect the change even in the later stage. All those four values and 12 principles. So we try to make co-located team. We try to make teams that can sit under 33 feet, that is 10 meter of the distance. We try to do what we try to make instead of making a detailed risk register for all the risk. Very important concept to understand. In agile, in Agile, risks are only considered as negative. In predictive, we consider risk as positive as well as negative. In Agile, we only consider risk as negative. So we know we can use risk burn down graph, risk burn up graph to manage all those risks that we can face during the project. So uh, initially, what we will do, we will build a team, we will build a team charter. We understand Maslow hierarchy of need. We know theory X and Y. All those theories.
Sir,
Yeah. Okay, in Agile, the risk is only considered as negative. In Agile, we don't have positive or negative risk. In Agile, the risk is only negative. So we will discuss that further when we'll go to the risk topic. Coming back to building the team, we make a resource management plan. We make a team charter. In the team charter, we define what is the vision for the team, what are the goal of the team, and we'd see all the Maslow theory, the Herzberg theory, theory X, theory Y, and most importantly, Tuckman ladder, forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. And we'll see adoptic leadership, that at what level project manager need to use, at what level he needs to do coaching, when he needs to do direction. Like at forming stage he need to give direction, at storming stage he needs to do coaching, at norming stage he need to do mentoring, at performing stage he need to do delegation, and again at adjourning stage he again need to do coaching. So all these things are happening simultaneously, and we are seeing what is the right way to do these things. So once the team is built, we already identify the stakeholder, we further look at the stakeholders, and then we make a stakeholder engagement plan, and we ensure that the current stage and the desired state of our stakeholders are according to our own requirement. The current state and the desired state are according to requirement. We make stakeholder engagement plan. We manage the expectations of stakeholders through utilization of emotional intelligence, active listening, personality development, understanding the needs of the stakeholder. We satisfy the stakeholder. And if there's any kind of conflict, we have discussed the 2 by 2 matrix, that we always go with the win-win situation. We try to get the win-win situation, problem solving, collaboration. Okay. And while you are doing this thing, the communication management plan is very important. You need to understand what is the best way. Virtual team is the best way for you, or co-location team is the best for you. What method of communication you are going to use? Push communication, pull communication, interactive. Are you going to use oral communication or written? Since we are right now working in agile environment, let's say, so in agile we don't like documentation. Like we even have a value in agile working software over a comprehensive documentation. So we can put the limit to minimum. However, if a stakeholder needs something in the written form, in the documentation form, we do documentation according to the stakeholder requirement. This is an important concept to understand. It does not mean that in Agile we don't do any kind of documentation. The only purpose is that we do only necessary documentation. We don't do unnecessary documentations. This is clear. So we choose what communication type to use. According to that, we make communication management plan. Remember, 4 R of the communication management plan: right format at the right time to right person for having the right impact. And communication management plans actually tells us who needs what information at what time, who needs what information at what time, who is authorized to share the information, and all those things. So in this way, we have discussed resource, we have discussed communication, we have discussed stakeholder, and even in the start, we agree with the quality management plan, how we are going to do compliance, health and safety, what are the standards. Maybe we utilize techniques like benchmarking to understand what kind of tools we are going to use, control charts, Pareto. So we make a quality management plan, and in managed quality, we ensure whatever the deliverables we are going to produce, they are according to our quality. And in control quality, we ensure only quality deliverables are produced. Yes, Zakriya.
Yes, Amr. I had a question about the PMIS. Can you just explain a little bit of that? Because
Project
it wasn't in detail a lot in the
Project
slides.
management information system is basically
Yes.
a combination of all the information, technology, system, tools that you are going to use in your project. For example, we are using configuration management plan that uses how you are going to manage the product. Then we are using change management plan that is going to use how you are going to handle change in the project. Then you can use Microsoft Project, Microsoft Viewer, Team Viewer, all those software, even WhatsApp, email, everything that you use for communication comes under project management information system. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay, so we are done with communication, stakeholder, and resource. If anyone has any question, please ask. Anyone has any question? Zakriya, your hand is raised. Okay. Okay. So let's move forward. Once,
So,
yes, Chen.
yeah, in Agile, how is quality implemented? Is it you have the team continuously testing?
I'm coming to the agile area, then
Thank you.
hopefully that will get clear. Okay, then we know that
Yeah, Amr, for quality, that falls under resources, or is it a different subcategory like quality management plan? Is
quality is
different.
different category, resources are different category, stakeholder is a
Okay.
different category, communication is a different category, scope is a different, okay, risk is different, then schedule is
Yes.
different. All those things are have a different scope according to them. We have 9 knowledge areas according to that. Okay, so let's see in Agile. Agile is basically an umbrella. You can say Agile has Scrum inside it. Agile has XP. Agile has Kanban. Agile has Lean. Agile has other methodologies. But the purpose here is that first we need to understand the Agile mindset. What is Agile mindset? The 4 values of the Agile and 12 principle. Like the biggest concept of agile is that we need to give a working software to the customer according to the requirement on the time which they have asked. And if they ask any change at any time, we must accommodate that change into the project. We must add that change into our project. We must ensure that change become useful for the team. So that is the basic concept of agile. So in agile, then we go with the scrum. 70% or 80% of the agile is basically scrum. What is scrum? Scrum is a framework. So scrum is a big framework which consists of how is a basically project management framework in agile, how you actually do the work. What happens? First of all, in scrum you make a project vision. What is your project vision? Then you make project vision, then you make project roadmap, like how you are going to achieve all those things. Then you make iteration plan, like how many iterations will be there, and then you make sprints. So then you make sprints, and then you make daily scrum. So we used onion model in this way, that the big thing is product roadmap, then we have iterations, okay, iterations, oh sorry, iteration, no, release. First is release, sorry, release, release, and then iteration, or also known as sprint, and then we have daily scrum or daily stand-up. Okay, so product roadmap, the big thing what we will have, then release 1, release 2, release 3. In the release we have multiple iterations. Generally iteration on a sprint is of 1 to 4 week, and in one project you have more than 2 to 3 release maximum, 2 to 3 release, and of course you have daily scrum. Okay, so what you do here, basically how you classify them, initially you go to the stakeholders and ask what are their requirement, and you write their requirements on in the form of user stories, and with all the user stories you make product backlog. This is important to understand. In one project there is one product backlog, that's it, nothing more than that. One product backlog. And once you have made the product backlog, who is making the product backlog? Product owner. Product owner is basically voice of the customer. He is responsible for making the product backlog. So once the product backlog is done, you have made the product backlog.
Wish list.
What you do, you basically you go to the customer and you talk to them. What are the highest priority items? What are the highest priority items, and you prioritize the product backlog according to the high value high risk item. So here we are using the risk thing. We identify the risk in it, and we prioritize according to the high risk high value. So in agile, basically we take the high risk and we try to deliver it as soon as possible. So I can say that high value high risk as the number one priority, then high value medium risk, high value, less risk. Then medium value, high risk, medium value, medium risk, and so on. In this way, you prioritize it, and this is very important. You prioritize according to the customer requirement, because value is defined by the customer. Customer is paying you, he knows what is more valuable. So you go to the customer, you use techniques like Moscow, must have, should have, could have. You use the techniques like 100 point in which the customer can prioritize the things. Then you can use monopoly, okay, all another prioritization. Maybe you can use a matrix to prioritize those things. So once product backlog is prioritized by the customer, then comes the team. Then comes the team, and that specific phase is known as sprint planning. Sprint planning, or also known as iteration planning. The team come to you, and now the team have estimated their velocity in the term of ideal days, or mostly in the term of story points. Story point is the effort, how much story point team can deliver. Remember, agile team consists of generalized specialists. They are co-located team, and they know their work very well. So they are going to take their task by themselves. So they take their task and they tell that this will be your velocity, and they will prioritize the product backlog according to how many story points each user story have. Once again, the team will tell how much effort is required to complete each user story, and that effort is represented by story point. And normally we represent the story points in the form of Fibonacci series. Okay, and so on. We use t-shirt sizing, wideband Delphi, affinity diagram, planning poker to basically allot story points to all those user stories. So once that is done, we get our sprint backlog from sprint planning. Then the sprints start happening, and we have daily stand-up in which Scrum Master, who is basically a servant leader, asks 3 questions: what you did yesterday, what you are going to do today, and is there any impediment or roadblocks. You utilize information radiators, burn up, burn down charts, which shows like burn down chart is a descending chart which shows how much work is remaining. Burn up chart is a ascending chart showing how much work has been done. Then you can also use cumulative flow diagram to basically map the complete work. You can also use the task board showing what is to do, what is in progress, what is completed. Or you can use Kanban board, meaning limiting the work in progress. So with that, you use cumulative flow diagram showing us the bottlenecks in the project. What are the bottlenecks in the project and how we can end those bottlenecks. So you also have risk burn down graph. The team is discussing the risk in the daily meeting, and in this way they are dealing with the risk on a regular basis. So once that is done, in sprint review team, the stakeholders come, the sponsor come, you show them minimum viable product, the product that has been agreed. So they accept the deliverables. Once the deliverable are accepted, that's good. If they are not accepted, they are rejected and goes back to product backlog, and product backlog is reprioritized here. Then we have sprint retrospective, in which teams sit together and six team basically do their own introspective. They do their analysis, what they have done good, what they have done bad, how they can improve. So sprint retrospective have 5 steps.
Step is gathering data. Third step is generating insights. And then fifth step is to decide what to do. And then the last step is to close the
Well done,
retrospective.
well done, Zach. Yes,
Yes.
these are the 5 steps in which we set the stage. We set what are the expectations, what can be expected from the people. Then we generate. Then we basically gather data. We use what has happened in the project, what we have learned. We can use a timeline exercise. For example, I am right now making a timeline telling you each and everything which we have studied and trying to summarize all those things so that you can understand in the best possible way. Then we use generate insight. We use 5 why fishbone diagram. We do root cause analysis to see how we can improve, how what are the things that we have done. And once that is done, we in the decide what to do. We make smart goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. We make goals like what we are going to do in future and what we are not going to do in the future. Then we close the sprint, close the retrospective with asking the feedback, like how the sprint went, how the retrospective went, what are the lesson learned that they have learned, all understanding is okay or not. So this was all about Scrum. Then
So,
lean is basically all about removing the waste, and XP is all about two programmers sitting together doing pair programming. And once they are doing continuous integrations, and XP is basically made on test driven development. Like we write the test, then we do that, and everyone is responsible. We don't have product owner. Everyone is responsible for what we are doing in the XP. So this is basically a high level of all about agile. Yes, Mr. Jen.
yeah. So in the sprint retrospective meeting, um, is the product owner there, or is it only the team
Okay.
and the Scrum Master?
The team is generally basically for the team. The meeting is basically for the team, but the product owner can come there, but he will be as a spectator. He has nothing to do there.
Okay. The
Okay.
next question is, when in Agile, when they discuss risk, are they discussing it in sprint planning, sprint retrospective?
They are discussing in sprint planning when they are
Okay.
prioritizing the user stories, and they are discussing in daily meetings, daily scrum, 15 minutes to see where the risk go, because we have made risk burn down graph. We are seeing where the risk stands, and we are trying to eliminate those risk by doing those things. In agile, we have risk spikes and architectural spikes. There sometimes also have we have iteration zero that is done initially in the start, so that the high risk activities we can remove. And also we have architectural spikes. Architectural spikes are done to see if we are like if there is a technological issue, or if there's a new technology, we can counter that. And at the end, once your all releases are complete, we have iteration H or sprint H, also known as hardening sprint. What we do in hardening sprint, basically we summarize, we basically check all the functionality. We do final checking of all those things. Mr. Jain, I hope I have answered the question.
Yes, sir. Thank
Sir,
you.
there is a question, please.
Yeah, wait, Maruk. Uzaif has asked before. Yes,
Okay,
Uzaif?
okay, okay.
Yes, Uzaif? Uzaif, you asked a question, brother. Okay, Maruk, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sir, in the product backlog, the prioritization of the features happens based on the high business value and high risk, right?
Yes.
In case the customer is asking to add more features than those new features, how they will be prioritized?
Good question.
The process is started, the work.
Okay, the most important thing is that as a general, when sprint is started, we don't add or remove anything unless it is extremely important. But a customer uh, can add anything at the sprint review. So what happens if the customer adds something? We, of course, we accept the change, but there is always trade-off. The customer adds something, he has to remove something. And plus, since it is customer, he is setting the priority. So now he has to reprioritize those things. Okay? He has to reprioritize. He has to tell, okay, this is the new thing. Now he has to tell, is this important or is that important? So he set the priority. Maru got
Sir,
it?
product owner, yes, sir, the product owner will not do the prioritization in this case.
Product owner does the
Yes,
prioritization in
yes,
collaboration with the customer.
yes, okay, in collaboration with the customer. Okay, got it.
In collaboration, because at the end of the day, customer is everything. The customer is paying, and we call product owner as the voice of the customer. Okay, so we,
Okay, thank you.
for exam, do remember four values of Agile, 12 principle. What are the roles of Scrum Master? What are the roles of product owner? What are the roles of development team? What happened in sprint backlog? What happened in product backlog? What happened in sprint planning meeting, sprint review, sprint retrospective, daily Scrum, burn up, burn down, risk graph, velocity, how to calculate velocity, story points, uh, maybe product roadmap, and that's it, nothing more. Understand the task board, kanban board, all those things which we just discussed. I think that can cover all those things. Yes, Joseph, brother, go ahead.
Yeah, sir, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, there was a problem with my mic. Actually, I just wanted to understand the difference between increment and iterative. It looks almost the same,
Okay,
uh,
increment,
literally.
we give delivery in steps. In iteration, we give the delivery as a whole. Okay, we give a delivery as a whole. English. Okay. Now increment. What happened in increment? We are giving delivery in step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. At any step we can change it, and that's it. But once we have moved from step 1 to step 2, we cannot change anything in step 1. We can change anything in step 2, but not in step 1. It's just like you are making staircase. When you are making staircase, you make the staircase number 1, you ask the client comes, the client says this is not good, this need to done, you do that, then you make staircase number 2, then 3, then 4, you show him each and every time the delivery. That is basically increment. What happen in iteration? In iteration, you try to give the delivery in one turn. You make something, you call the client says no, it's okay, then you make the whole thing again. For example, as I was giving example to Zaf, let's say you are in construction and you ordered some bricks. Okay, let's say you ordered 2000 bricks for your house. The guy come, he delivered the bricks, he went back, you give him the money, your story is ended. After a few days, you need more bricks, the guy come back, you give him, he give you 2000 bricks more, that's it, the story ends, and so on. So that's iteration. Is this clear now? So now let's come to the risk. Understand risk. Now this, what I'm going to say, that if you understand that thing, I think risk will be clear. The first thing is you identify the risk. The step number 1 is you identify risk. Just like stakeholders, you go through all the documents, you identify all the possible risk. Once you identify the risk, you put all the risk in the risk register. So once the risk register is done, you have at this stage you have potential response, potential owner who are going to tackle those risks. Okay, so risks are there. We have gone through documents, we have gone through assumptions and constraints, we checked lesson and registered the past document, we have asked expert, all those things. Once the risks are identified, then you can have 10,000 risks maybe. It does not make sense that you work on each and every of the risks. The reason is that you rank those risks as high, medium, low, using qualitative risk assessment, that is probability into impact. So you do qualitative risk assessment. So once you have high level risk, high medium risk, if needed, remember if needed, then you can do quantitative risk analysis, that expected monetary value, decision tree analysis, Monte Carlo analysis, tornado diagram, all those things you do that. As a result, your risk register get updated. Once you have updated risk register, now it's the time to put for the plan. So we have plan for positive risk and negative plan response for negative risk. We have negative risk plan avoid, mitigate, transfer, and for positive we have exploit, enhance, share. Then we have accept. For accept, we have active acceptance where we make contingency plans and fallback plans. For passive risk, for where we don't do active acceptance, we just do workarounds. And then you can escalate. Remember, escalation can come after or it can come at the top. This is important to understand. Escalation can come after or it can come before the any risk. Okay. So once you have made all the risk register, your risk register is finalized, it is updated. Now is the time. You also make a risk report. There's a difference between risk register and risk report. Risk register is one register that you take from start till the end, then it get archived. Risk report is produced in every risk meeting, a weekly or bi-weekly report which tells us what is the overall risk, what is the high risk, what is the low risk. It gives us simulation, all those things. So then you implement those risk
So,
response.
yeah.
Then you have risk
Yep.
audit, risk assessment. All you go through that, what is the right thing, what you need to improve. You monitor the risk throughout the project, and if any new risk is identified, it goes. Remember, for stakeholders or risk, if any new thing is identified, it goes back to the register and again get analyzed. So this is all about risk journey. Yes, Mr. Jen?
So can you explain a little bit about risk workaround? Where would you apply? Can you explain
Once
that?
when if you haven't identified the risk and the risk occur, if you haven't identified a
Okay.
risk, the risk occurred. So now you need to use management reserves. Now you need to make some plan. So that plan is known as workaround. Okay. For
Okay.
example, I haven't planned for this question. You asked me, a risk occurred, something occurred, I answered for it. I made a workaround for that. Got it?
Right. So the workaround is whenever you've not identified the risk and you're uh, addressing that, right?
Yeah. Okay. So let's move forward. Let's see what we can do further. Okay. So just one thing. Okay, so risk is done. Let's talk about procurement journey. We have already discussed procurement journey when we were discussing starting the course. You make or buy decision whether you want to make or you buy. Once you have made a decision that you want to buy, then you go with the source selection criteria, which source you need to do. So the reason for attending any source, it can be quality, it can be its cost can quality, past reference, and all those things. So once you have done that, you write your project statement or procurement statement of work. Once that is written, then you finalize which contract to use. Is it going to be fixed price contract? Is it going to be fixed price incentive fee, fixed price award fee, cost reimbursement, cost plus award fee, cost plus incentive fee, or time and material contract? According to your requirement and scope, you finalize the contract. You you shortlist the sellers. What who are the potential sellers? And once those sellers are shortlisted, You negotiate with them and you sign the agreements. Once agreement is signed, you do inspections. You do the inspections, and if it is written in the contract, you can do audit. Then you do the audit. Remember, inspection is checking the deliverable. Audit is basically checking the process. Once that is done, if everything is okay, you close the procurement. If a conflict occur, you try to solve it through win-win situation. If you cannot do what is written in the contract. If you cannot do, have a mediator. If you cannot do, then go alternate dispute resolution, go to the court. So that's all about procurement. If you have any question in procurement, please ask. So I hope this is making sense. And I know this is also osmotic communication. We have some virtual technology challenges. We have few of the challenges that we need to overcome. But now things are making sense. We have gone through a lot of materials. We already know what is brainstorming, interviews, expert judgment, emotional intelligence, Stuckman ladder. What are the information radiator, root cause analysis, fishbone, audit, Kanban board, task board, value stream mapping. What is refactoring? Refactoring means basically you are simplifying your process. What are the escape defects that cannot be, that quality could not catch, and the defect goes actually to the client, that are known as escape defect. Then we know technical debt, the debt that we don't refactor, that we don't simplify, keep on rising, that become technical debt. Burn now, burn down, planning poker, t-shirt, ideal days, 3 point estimation, optimistic, pessimistic, most likely, that those triangular distribution and beta distribution, analogous estimation, bottom up estimation. We have, then we have voting, Moscow, 100 point, high value, high risk items. Then user stories having 3C, card, confirmation, conversation. We know ROI, payback, scoring models. We discuss quality, risk, communication, stakeholder, procurement, resource. And then we know that the last thing that is left, that is,
Amr,
yes,
can can you just revise?
first in any process, and especially procurement, we decide what to buy, from where to buy. Once we have decided, first basically, sorry, we basically do make or buy analysis, whether we want to make or we want to buy from outside. It can be from various factors, like do we have the capability to make it, do we want to do it ourselves or not, or is the best source is from outside. Why, what are the reasons that we want to do it from outside? Make or buy analysis is being done. Once the make or buy analysis is being done, then we do source selection criteria. What source we select, what is the reason of selecting the source. Once the source is selected, then we actually go with a statement of work, all the specification that is needed in the product. Once that is done, we select which type of contract we would like to have. If our scope is fixed, we go with the fixed price contract. If our scope is not fixed, we go with the plus fixed fee. Then we have time and material. We also have incentive, award free, and economic price adjustment in between to manage our contracts. So we decide with the procurement phases, procurement strategy, how we are going to tackle that. So we basically give that information, we market that, advertise that. As a result, we get bidding document from all the bidders. Then we discuss with them, we negotiate them, having a bidding conference, we shortlist the sellers, we negotiate with them, we write the agreement. Agreement is the most important thing. Everything will be done according to the agreement so far. So once agreement is being done, agreement has been finalized. So what to do now? Now, once agreement is done, we inspect the deliverables. Deliverables are according to the agreed quality standards or not. Then we do the audit. If audit is allowed in the agreement, we once that is done, if the deliverables are accepted, we close the procurement. If there is any kind of uh, conflict, we do conflict management, try to have win-win situation. If we are unable to do that, we do what is written in the contract. If we are unable to do that, we try to have a mediator, a third party. If we are unsuccessful that, then and only then we go to the court. And in this way, we close the procurement. Zakria, is it clear?
Yes, thank you.
So the last thing that is remaining is how three baselines are created. This is very critical and very important. Like we know scope baseline, schedule baseline, and cost baseline. We have three baselines. So depending on the predictive or agile, we discussed agile. In predictive, we basically have scope management plan, requirement management plan. From scope management plan, basically we tell how the scope is going to manage. In requirement management plan, we collect all the requirements. We collect the requirements using through brainstorming, expert judgment, interviews, context diagrams, prototype, nominal group technique, Adelphi technique, affinity diagram, and we make requirement traceability matrix and requirement documentation. Requirement traceability matrix track all the requirements from start till the end. Requirement documentations have all the necessary documentation, functional functional requirement, non-functional quality, all those things. Once that is done, we make project scope statement by defining the scope. Once that is done, we make scope baseline by making work breakdown structures, work breakdown structure dictionary. We get work package, the smallest package on which we can work. Scope baseline is done. Our goal is to manage this baseline in control. Our goal is that to limit scope creep, and we don't do gold plating. We only do what we have agreed with the customer. So when quality basically accept the deliverables, then in validate scope, we validate the deliverables with the customer. If they accept the deliverables, they go to the close the deliverables. So once we have work packages, we divide the work package into activity, then we sequence those activity, we estimate their duration, and we develop the schedule. Once the schedule is developed, we get the schedule baselines. So we have a schedule baseline, scope baseline. Then we go with the cost baseline. Through bottom-up estimation, funding limit reconciliation, cost aggregation, we make cost baseline, which have all the cost that is required with their contingency reserve, and we have project budget with their management reserve plus project funding requirement. Then we ensure in the control cost and control schedule that schedule variance and cost variance, schedule performance index and cost performance index are within our range. If they are not in our range, then we generate a change request, and through perform integrated change control to change control board, we ensure proper changes are managed and they are integrated in the proper way. All of those changes are integrated in the proper way. If the budget is not valid, then we have estimated completion, get the new budget. Finally, when all of these things are done, we integrate all these plan and we make a project management plan, a comprehensive plan, I mean all the plans and all the documentation. And this summarize all the predictive agile of your PMP exam. If you have any question, you can ask. And I know that if you can understand all those things and if you can tell this story, I have no slide open, I have nothing, I am just telling it from my memory. When you are able to do that, you can become a certified PMP. So when student ask me, "Oh, sir, when we know we are ready for exam, I tell them do this and you are ready.
Inshallah. This video will be available, right?
This video will be available for everyone. I will put it on YouTube so that other people can use.